I speak for Africa, not for Burkina Faso alone. I speak for the pulse of a continent whose voice has too often been silenced, distorted, or simplified. I stand not for borders drawn by history's accidents, but for a shared destiny shaped by struggle, beauty, and boundless potential. When I speak, I echo the rhythm of African soil. From the wind-swept dunes of the Sahara to the green cradle of the Congo, I carry the hopes of farmers who rise with the sun and children who walk miles to learn. I carry the dreams of artists, thinkers, builders, and warriors of peace who believe that Africa is more than a story of poverty and conflict. It is a force awake and rising. I do not speak for Burkina Faso, because no single country holds the weight of Africa's voice. We are not just a patchwork of flags and governments. We are a continent of 1 billion souls, connected by history, by struggle, by vision. Our problems are not isolated: climate, inequality, corruption, exploitation. These do not stop at borders, neither should our voices. I speak for the mother in Malawi who sells fruit to send her daughter to school, for the young innovator in Lagos coding solutions to problems the world has ignored, for the miner in the DRC whose labor powers global technology, yet whose own community lives in darkness. I speak for the Maasai herder, the Tunisian activist, the Cape Town poet, and the Somali fisherman. I speak for those who history forgot, and for those who history will remember. Africa does not need pity. Africa needs partnership. Africa does not need saving. Africa needs a fair chance. Let it be known, we are not waiting to be discovered. We are not an emerging continent. We have already emerged. What we seek now is not permission, but respect, not charity, but justice, not silence, but a seat at every table where our future is discussed. I speak for Africa, and when I do, I speak with the strength of 1 billion hearts, the wisdom of generations, and the fire of a people who will no longer be ignored. Let the world listen. Let the world learn. Let the world rise with Africa. I do not speak for just one country. I speak for the whole of Africa, a continent united by shared history, struggles, and aspirations. To speak for Africa is not to erase our diversity, but to recognize the threads that connect us across borders. From the shores of Senegal to the plains of Ethiopia, from the mountains of Lesotho to the coasts of Tanzania, it is a living, breathing story of endurance, transformation, and hope. For too long, the world has spoken about Africa in fragments. Each country, each crisis, each success is often viewed in isolation, as though it were separate from the whole. But when I speak for Africa, I speak with the understanding that no challenge faced by one of us exists alone. When drought strikes in the Sahel, when conflict flares in the Horn, when youth in Johannesburg protest for change, the effects and echoes reach beyond national borders. We are bound by the same winds, the same waters, and the same aspirations for justice, peace, and dignity. Our colonial histories may have divided us, but our post-independent struggles for self-determination, development, and identity have shaped a shared path. Whether it is the fight against apartheid in South Africa, the revolutions in North Africa, or the rebuilding of war-torn nations like Rwanda and Liberia, the spirit that carried each movement was one rooted in a common yearning for African agency, African unity, and African pride. To speak for Africa is to speak for a continent that has long been misunderstood. We are not defined by our poverty, our conflicts, or the narratives imposed on us. We are defined by the people who rise each day with determination. We are defined by the youth who are rewriting our story through technology, culture, and activism. We are defined by the women who carry our communities, often unseen and underappreciated, yet vital to every step we take forward. It is easy to point to the differences between Burkina Faso and Ghana, between Kenya and Algeria. Yes, we speak many languages, follow different religions, and practice diverse traditions. But these differences do not divide us, they enrich us. Beneath them lies a unity rooted in shared experience, the experience of striving to overcome exploitation, of refusing to be silenced. Across our differences, we dream the same dreams, for safety, for education, for opportunity, for dignity. We do not need to be spoken for. We are capable of speaking for ourselves. Yet too often, global conversations about Africa exclude our voices, our perspectives, and our leadership. That must end. When I say I speak for Africa, it is not because I claim to hold every answer or to represent every view. It is because I refuse to let Africa be spoken of without Africans at the center. I speak because silence would be a betrayal of those who have come before and those yet to come. Africa is not waiting to be discovered. Africa is not in need of saving. We are already standing. We are already rising. Our story is still being written, not by those who observe from afar, but by those who live its daily truths. I speak for Africa because our unity is our strength, and our voice deserves to be heard, loudly, clearly, and without apology. Africa is a land of vast and breathtaking diversity, a continent whose richness cannot be captured by a single story or simple description. From the endless golden dunes of the Sahara Desert to the lush, vibrant rainforests of the Congo Basin, from the ancient villages nestled in remote valleys to the bustling modern cities that pulse with energy and innovation, Africa is alive with creativity, resilience, and untapped potential. This diversity is not just a matter of geography or culture. It is a wellspring of strength that fuels the continent's growth and future. The landscapes of Africa are as varied as the people who call it home. In the north, the Sahara's arid expanse challenges life with its harshness. Yet the cultures that thrive there have adapted for centuries, developing traditions and ways of life that honor the land and its gifts. Farther south, the savannas stretch out, home to rich ecosystems and communities who have learned to live in balance with nature. In the heart of Africa, dense forests teem with life, while on the coasts, the oceans bring livelihoods and connections to the wider world. This diversity in terrain shapes the people, their economies, and their cultures in countless ways. Africa's strength comes from its people and their resilience. Across the continent, communities have faced and overcome incredible challenges: colonialism, exploitation, political upheaval, economic hardship, and environmental changes. Yet through it all, Africans have shown a remarkable ability to endure and innovate. Whether it is a small-scale farmer developing sustainable agricultural methods in Ghana, or an entrepreneur in Nairobi launching a tech startup that changes how people access information, creativity is a common thread. This resilience is a testament to the spirit of a people who refuse to be defined by obstacles, but instead see them as opportunities for growth and reinvention. The cultural diversity of Africa is equally astounding. The continent is home to thousands of ethnic groups, each with its own languages, traditions, music, art, and beliefs. From the Maasai warriors in Kenya to the Zulu people of South Africa, from the Berber tribes in Morocco to the Yoruba of Nigeria, these cultures represent a mosaic of human expression. This diversity is a source of pride and a foundation for unity. It is also a source of innovation, as different traditions blend and inspire new ideas in art, fashion, technology, and more. Africa's cities reflect this vibrant diversity and energy. Urban centers like Lagos, Cairo, Johannesburg, and Dakar are not only economic hubs, but cultural melting pots, where ancient traditions meet modern aspirations. These cities are home to young populations bursting with ideas and ambition, driving change in fields as varied as science, technology, literature, and entrepreneurship. The creativity that flourishes in these urban spaces is reshaping perceptions of Africa from a place of struggle to one of opportunity and promise. Importantly, Africa's diversity is also seen in its languages, which number in the thousands. Each language carries with it unique histories and worldviews. This linguistic richness fosters a deep sense of identity and community, but also offers a wealth of knowledge and wisdom passed down through generations. The preservation and celebration of these languages strengthen the cultural fabric of the continent and ensure that African stories continue to be told in authentic voices. The continent's natural resources are yet another dimension of its strength. Africa is blessed with abundant minerals, fertile lands, and vast energy potential. When harnessed sustainably and equitably, these resources can fuel development and improve living standards for millions. The challenge lies not in scarcity, but in managing these assets wisely, ensuring that the wealth they generate benefits all Africans and supports long-term prosperity. In every corner of Africa, the thread of resilience weaves through diverse landscapes and cultures. This resilience is not passive endurance, but an active force, a determination to build better futures, protect heritage, and innovate boldly. It is a promise that Africa's story is far from complete, and that the pages yet to be written will reflect a continent defined by strength in diversity, creativity, and unyielding hope. Africa's richness lies in its differences, and its strength grows from them. It is this complexity, this multitude of voices and visions, that makes Africa not just a place on the map, but a vibrant, dynamic, and powerful force in the world. To understand Africa, one must see it in its fullness, its deserts and forests, its villages and cities, its traditions and innovations. Only then can the true potential of this incredible continent be truly appreciated and celebrated. Our challenges are not confined by borders or national boundaries. They are continental in scope and impact. Issues such as poverty, climate change, corruption, and inequality affect every corner of Africa, crossing rivers, deserts, and mountains without hesitation. These problems do not recognize the lines drawn on maps, nor do they spare one country while leaving another untouched. To address them effectively, we must recognize that our struggles are shared and that only through collective action and unity can we hope to overcome them. Poverty remains one of the most pressing challenges facing Africa today. While some countries have made significant strides in reducing extreme poverty, millions of people across the continent still live without access to basic necessities such as clean water, adequate food, healthcare, and education. This widespread hardship fuels other problems: hunger, disease, lack of opportunities, and social instability. Because poverty is so deeply rooted and widespread, it cannot be tackled in isolation by individual nations. Instead, it requires a coordinated effort, sharing knowledge, resources, and strategies that are sensitive to the unique contexts of different regions, but united by a common goal of lifting all Africans out of deprivation. Climate change is another issue that no single African country can solve alone. The continent is among the most vulnerable to the impacts of a warming planet, despite contributing the least to global carbon emissions. Rising temperatures, unpredictable rainfall, and extreme weather events threaten agriculture, water supplies, and the livelihoods of millions. These environmental changes affect ecosystems and economies across borders. For example, drought in one region can disrupt food supplies in neighboring countries. Flooding in a river basin can impact multiple nations along its course. Addressing climate change demands cooperation on an unprecedented scale. Sharing technology, implementing sustainable practices, and creating policies that protect the environment while supporting communities. African countries must come together to build resilience and advocate strongly on the global stage for fair climate action. Corruption, which undermines governance and economic development, is another challenge that transcends borders. It weakens institutions, erodes public trust, and siphons away resources needed for development. Corruption is often linked to wider networks that operate regionally or even internationally, making it difficult for any one country to tackle on its own. Efforts to combat corruption must therefore be regional and collaborative, involving transparent systems, accountable leadership, and partnerships across governments and civil society. Only through united vigilance and shared standards can corruption be effectively challenged and prevented. Inequality, whether economic, social, or gender-based, also spans the continent. Despite Africa's rich resources and young, vibrant population, wealth and opportunities remain unevenly distributed within and between countries. This disparity fuels frustration, marginalization, and sometimes conflict. It stifles potential and divides communities that should instead be working together to build inclusive growth. Tackling inequality means addressing structural barriers and promoting policies that create opportunities for all, regardless of where someone lives or their background. It requires solidarity among African nations to promote justice, equality, and human rights as central to development. Facing these challenges together does not mean ignoring the specific needs of individual countries, but rather acknowledging that the solutions must be rooted in collective strength. African nations share economies, ecosystems, cultures, and histories. What affects one often affects many. Therefore, cooperation, regional integration, and the sharing of resources and expertise are essential. When countries pool their knowledge and efforts, they become more powerful in addressing issues that are too large or complex for any single nation to handle. We must also speak with a united voice in global forums. Too often, Africa's concerns are overlooked or marginalized on the world stage. By standing together, African countries can demand fair treatment, equitable partnerships, and the resources necessary to tackle our shared problems. Unity strengthens our ability to negotiate, advocate, and implement solutions that reflect African priorities and realities. In the face of poverty, climate change, corruption, and inequality, isolation is not an option. Our challenges are interconnected and continental in nature. Our responses must be just as connected, just as expansive. Only through solidarity, cooperation, and shared commitment can we build a future where these challenges are overcome and all Africans can thrive. The continent's strength lies not only in its diversity, but in its unity, united in purpose, united in action, and united in hope. Africa deserves respect, not pity. For far too long, the continent has been seen through a lens of helplessness and dependency, as though it were a place defined primarily by need rather than strength. This view is not only misleading but deeply unfair. Africa is not a continent waiting to be saved. It is a continent ready to stand on its own terms, to engage with the world as an equal partner, and to claim its rightful place in the global community. What Africa needs is respect. Respect for its people, its cultures, its economies, and its immense contributions to the world. The narrative of pity has long overshadowed Africa's realities. Too often, news about Africa focuses on crises, droughts, conflicts, disease, or poverty, without acknowledging the resilience and achievements of its people. This one-dimensional portrayal creates a distorted image that ignores the vibrancy, innovation, and progress that exist alongside challenges. It reduces a continent of over 1 billion people to a single story of suffering. This pity may come with good intentions, but it ultimately disempowers. It frames Africans as passive recipients of aid rather than active agents of their own futures. Africa's strength is undeniable. The continent is home to some of the fastest growing economies in the world, driven by entrepreneurship, technology, natural resources, and human talent. Cities like Nairobi, Lagos, and Johannesburg are hubs of innovation, where startups are developing solutions that address local and global problems alike. African artists, writers, musicians, and filmmakers are shaping global culture and enriching the world's artistic landscape. In science, education, and business, Africans are making groundbreaking contributions that deserve recognition and celebration. What Africa needs is not charity, but fair partnerships. Partnerships based on mutual respect and shared benefit, where Africans have control and leadership in shaping their own development. For too long, external aid and investment have come with strings attached, reinforcing unequal power dynamics. True partnerships recognize Africa's agency, expertise, and potential. They involve listening to African voices, respecting local knowledge, and investing in sustainable solutions that benefit communities directly. These partnerships should aim to empower rather than create dependency. Equal opportunities are also essential. Africans must have access to the same chances for education, employment, innovation, and leadership that are available elsewhere. Barriers created by global inequalities, such as unfair trade practices, limited access to technology, and restrictive immigration policies, must be dismantled. When Africa's young people are given the tools and opportunities to thrive, they become engines of growth and change, not just for their countries, but for the entire world. The continent's demographic dividend is a powerful resource that, if nurtured properly, can drive global progress. Global recognition of Africa's contributions is long overdue. The continent's history, culture, and influence stretch far beyond its borders. African knowledge has shaped medicine, agriculture, philosophy, and science throughout history. Today, African countries contribute to peacekeeping missions, global diplomacy, and international organizations. African businesses are part of global supply chains, and African innovations are transforming industries worldwide. Yet these contributions often go unnoticed or undervalued in international discourse. Respect also means acknowledging Africa's sovereignty and right to self-determination. Africans must be able to make decisions about their own political, economic, and social futures without external interference. This includes respecting the diversity of African societies and their choices. Respect does not mean ignoring problems or challenges, but addressing them with dignity, partnership, and shared responsibility rather than paternalism. Africa's story is not one of dependency or failure. It is a story of resilience, creativity, and rising strength. To truly support Africa, the world must shift from pity to respect, from charity to partnership, from silence to recognition. By doing so, we honor the dignity of African people and open the door to a future where Africa's contributions are celebrated, its potential fully realized, and its place in the world respected as it should be. Africa does not want to be saved. It wants to be seen and heard as an equal. It wants fair opportunities, honest partnerships, and the respect it has always deserved. This respect is the foundation upon which true progress and cooperation can be built for Africa and for the world. Our people drive progress. Across the vast and diverse continent of Africa, it is the creativity, determination, and hard work of ordinary men and women that shape the future. From entrepreneurs and students to farmers and artists, Africans are not waiting for change. They are making it happen every day. Their stories, often overlooked or ignored, deserve to be seen, heard, and celebrated because they reveal the true face of Africa, one of resilience, innovation, and hope. Entrepreneurs across Africa are transforming economies and communities. In cities and rural areas alike, individuals are launching businesses that address local challenges with homegrown solutions. These entrepreneurs are creating jobs, stimulating growth, and building industries that have global potential. Whether it is a tech startup in Lagos developing apps for financial inclusion, a small-scale manufacturer in Accra producing sustainable goods, or a cooperative in rural Kenya improving access to clean energy, these innovators demonstrate that Africa's future lies in its ability to harness the talents of its people. Their success stories challenge outdated stereotypes and show the world that Africa is a place of opportunity and enterprise. Students and young people are another vital force in Africa's progress. With one of the youngest populations in the world, the continent's youth are full of energy, ideas, and ambition. Many are pursuing education at universities and training centers, gaining skills in fields like science, technology, engineering, and the arts. These students are the future leaders, scientists, doctors, and creators who will drive Africa forward. Beyond formal education, many young Africans are also active in social movements, advocacy, and community development, pushing for change and demanding accountability from governments and institutions. Their voices and actions must be recognized as essential to the continent's advancement. Farmers, too, play a crucial role in building Africa's future. Agriculture remains the backbone of many African economies and is the source of livelihood for millions. Despite facing challenges such as climate change, limited resources, and market access, African farmers continue to innovate. They adopt new techniques, embrace sustainable practices, and form cooperatives to improve productivity and resilience. Their work not only feeds families and communities, but also contributes to food security and economic stability across the continent. Highlighting their stories helps us appreciate the deep connection between Africa's land, its people, and its progress. Artists and cultural creators also drive change by shaping identity, inspiring communities, and challenging perceptions. Africa's music, literature, film, and visual arts are rich with history and innovation, offering powerful ways to express experiences, aspirations, and social critiques. Artists bring attention to important issues, celebrate heritage, and create bridges between generations and cultures. Their creativity enriches global culture and plays a key role in defining modern Africa on its own terms. Recognizing their contributions affirms the importance of culture as a foundation for progress and unity. It is essential to understand that progress on the continent is not the result of external aid or intervention alone. While international support can be helpful, it is ultimately the efforts of Africans themselves that propel development. Their local knowledge, leadership, and determination are the driving forces behind sustainable change. When Africans tell their own stories, solutions become more relevant and effective, and communities feel empowered rather than dependent. Unfortunately, many of these stories go untold. Media coverage often focuses on crises or negative aspects, overshadowing the countless positive examples of progress. This skewed narrative can create a distorted image of Africa as a continent of problems rather than potential. Changing this requires amplifying the voices of those who are working every day to build a better future. Entrepreneurs launching new ventures, students pushing boundaries, farmers feeding nations, and artists inspiring change. Celebrating and sharing these stories fosters pride and optimism within Africa and challenges stereotypes abroad. It encourages young people to see themselves as agents of change and motivates others to support African-led initiatives. It also shifts global perspectives, helping the world to appreciate Africa's complexity, vitality, and promise. Our people are the heart of Africa's progress. They are the builders, the creators, the visionaries, and the guardians of culture and community. Their contributions shape not only their countries, but the entire continent and the global community. It is time to listen to their stories, recognize their achievements, and support their efforts. When we do, we honor the true spirit of Africa, a continent moving forward through the strength, talent, and dreams of its people. Africa demands a seat at the global table because our future cannot and must not be decided without us. For too long, decisions that affect the continent's political, economic, and social well-being have been made far from African voices, often without our input or consideration. This exclusion has contributed to misunderstandings, missed opportunities, and policies that do not reflect the realities and aspirations of African people. But Africa is no longer willing to remain on the margins. We will speak, lead, and shape the world's future from the center, asserting our rightful place among the nations of the globe. Africa's exclusion from key global conversations has historical roots tied to colonialism and the structures established during and after that era. Many international institutions and forums were created without adequate African representation or influence, which has meant that policies often prioritize external interests over African ones. This imbalance has affected trade agreements, climate negotiations, peace and security efforts, and development aid. Without a meaningful voice, Africa has struggled to steer outcomes in ways that reflect its needs and ambitions. However, the world is changing, and Africa is changing with it. The continent's growing population, abundant natural resources, and rapidly expanding economies make it impossible to ignore. Africa is home to over 1 billion people, one of the youngest and fastest growing populations on Earth. This demographic shift brings tremendous potential for innovation, cultural influence, and economic growth that can benefit not only Africa but the entire world. To harness this potential fully, Africa must be involved in shaping the global rules and frameworks that govern trade, technology, security, and environmental policies. A seat at the global table means more than just presence. It means active participation and leadership. African countries must be able to set agendas, influence decisions, and hold others accountable. This applies to global organizations like the United Nations, the World Trade Organization, the International Monetary Fund, and climate change conferences where critical decisions are made. It also means having a say in emerging fields such as digital governance, artificial intelligence, and global health, where the future is being shaped today. Africa's perspectives are essential because they bring unique experiences and solutions to global challenges. From climate change adaptation to sustainable development and peace building, Africa offers valuable insights based on its diverse contexts and resilience. Excluding African voices not only undermines the continent, but also impoverishes global decision-making. Inclusive dialogue that respects Africa's views leads to more just, effective, and sustainable outcomes. Moreover, Africa's demand for a seat at the global table is tied to the principle of sovereignty and respect. African nations are sovereign entities with the right to determine their own destinies. Global governance must reflect this respect and recognize that Africa's leaders and peoples are best positioned to speak on behalf of their countries and continent. This respect strengthens international cooperation, builds trust, and fosters partnerships based on equality rather than dependency. Africa's leadership on the world stage is already growing. Regional organizations like the African Union are playing crucial roles in conflict resolution, economic integration, and political coordination. African countries are increasingly influential in shaping global trade through initiatives like the African Continental Free Trade Area, AFF-CFTA, but the future of Africa is less certain. African voices have become more prominent in international forums, advocating for fairer economic policies and stronger commitments to climate action. This momentum must be supported and expanded so that Africa's influence matches its importance. To truly have a seat at the global table, Africa must also invest in building its capacities, strengthening institutions, education systems, infrastructure, and technological innovation. A strong, united, and prosperous Africa is better positioned to assert its interests and collaborate as an equal partner. This internal strengthening is as important as demanding inclusion from outside. Africa's call for inclusion is not about exclusion or confrontation. It is about justice, fairness, and recognition. It is about ensuring that the future of a continent with 1 billion people is shaped with their voices, their wisdom, and their leadership. The world benefits when Africa participates fully and equally in global affairs. Africa will no longer be relegated to the sidelines. We will speak boldly, lead with confidence, and shape the world, not from the margins, but from the center. This is not only Africa's demand, but a necessity for a more just and balanced global future. The time for Africa's rightful place at the global table is now.